I was totally bummed out. I had just finished reading my rejection letter from my dream college, and I felt like I didn't want to exist anymore. I sat on my living room couch feeling like my soul had been sucked out of me. Spencer, you still have a lot to be hopeful for. You were accepted into 5 other colleges, so just pick one, my sister Hannah said. Since kindergarten, I'd always been at the top of my class. I always imagined myself at the best university in the country, and now that they'd rejected me, I didn't know what to do. Come on, stop looking like that. 2 of the colleges you got accepted into are Ivy League schools. They may not be the one you really wanted to go to, but they're still pretty great. Just pick one, she continued, trying to make me feel better. But before I continue my story, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, hit that notification bell to make sure you don't miss out on any awesome stories. I chose the second best option, and before I knew it, I was off to college. As soon as I got there, I felt much better. The campus was huge and beautiful, and everyone seemed to be smiling and cheerful. I shared a room with an exchange student named Roberto. He was from Italy and had been there for about a year already. He was great and always made sure our room was squeaky clean. I forgot to tell you my major. I was studying aerospace engineering, and the students in my classes weren't the most exciting crowd around. Yes, my courses were thrilling, but by the middle of the semester, I realized I had no social life and was becoming pretty bored. Roberto, where do you meet girls around here? There are only a few in my classes, and they won't talk to me. I think I need a girlfriend, I said to my roommate one night while chugging down a huge bottle of soda. Well, it depends on the kind of girl you'd like to meet. If you're looking for a kind but serious one, try the library, he replied. I'm serious, man, I whined. Oh, how about the drama club? There are lots of girls there. I mean, I just go clubbing, but I don't think that's your type of thing, he said. I can't act to save my life, I laughed. I decided to try anyway. I just showed up during a random rehearsal and asked the professor in charge if I could join. His name was Dr. Thompson. Do you have any acting talent? He asked me seriously. Not really. I was just hoping I could learn here, I replied. Well, you can just observe for a while. I'll give you some simple tasks to do because we could use a little help around here. When you think you're ready, we can allow you to take on a minor role. If you're still here, that is. Acting is no walk in the park, he laughed. Cool, thanks so much for the opportunity, I said while sitting down to watch the team rehearse. They were acting out scenes from The Tempest and everyone kept forgetting their lines. It was hilarious. I was about to take out my phone to record them so I could show Roberto later, when I saw her. The most beautiful girl in existence. She just popped onto the stage to clear up some of the props, then she just happened to look my way. We made eye contact for at least 10 seconds, and it was totally mesmerizing. Then she ran off the stage. I have got to find her and get her number or something, I thought while my heart beat loudly. I waited for the rehearsal to end, then I went backstage, hoping to find her. She was all alone in the dressing room, stuffing some costumes in a bag. Hi, I'm Spencer. I'm new here. What's your name? I said, surprised at my confidence. Hi, Spencer. I'm Eliana, she said while holding her hand out for me to shake it. People still do that? I laughed while holding her hand. It was so soft and warm. And that was basically how my obsession with Eliana started. I made sure I turned up at every single rehearsal, and when Dr. Thompson finally let her act, I realized that she was the most talented one there. She played her roles really well, and she could sing too. I always found myself daydreaming about being married to her when she eventually became famous. We'd walk down the red carpet together, hand in hand, while everyone made a fuss over us. Spencer, what are you doing? Mr. Thompson's voice shouted and snapped me back to reality during one of my daydreams. I asked you to sweep the stage 15 whole minutes ago, he said. I got up and did as he asked. I was still too shy to audition for anything, so I kept coming to observe and do whatever tasks Dr. Thompson asked me to. Well, mostly to gawk at Eliana. I'd been trying to develop the courage to ask her out on a date, but I was just too shy to do so. Every single day, I'd rehearse the words in my head. Hey, Eliana, I think you're really brilliant, and I was wondering if you'd like to go out with me sometime. But I never had the strength to say them. Then, everything fell apart. I was late to a rehearsal because I was working on an important group project with my classmates. When I arrived, I apologized to Dr. Thompson, who seemed to be in a really bad mood that day. Listen, you're just not serious. I think you should go try to join some geeky club with the rest of the aerospace engineering nerds like you. People like you aren't cut out for the arts. You just don't have the discipline. Go to the moon, he said. But this is the first time I've ever been late. Please don't do this, I pleaded. But he refused to listen. I was kicked out of the drama club. How was I supposed to see Eliana now? I went back to my dorm room feeling like a complete idiot. I never asked for Eliana's number because I was always so sure I'd see her every day. I also didn't want it to seem like I was coming onto her too strong. How am I going to get close to her now? I asked Roberto after whining in his ears all night about how my life was over. Dude, it's not rocket science. You science geeks are always the last to use your common sense. Do you even have any? Just find out what other club she's a part of. Here, I found her Facebook page. It seems like she's into that sorority stuff. Look, he said while showing me her profile on his laptop. Wow, she's so beautiful, I said while drooling at her picture. Focus. It says right here that she's part of the Alpha Delta sorority. Maybe you can find her there, he said. Roberto, I don't know how things work in Italy, but a sorority is for girls only. They won't let me in, I said. Well, he said while looking at me like he was going to burst out laughing. Oh my gosh, what are you thinking? I asked. Just dress up like a girl and join the stupid sorority. I have to study for a test now, so please stop talking, Roberto said, then turned away. He was like that sometimes. Now, I know you're thinking that this is a completely ridiculous idea, but do you know how much I missed Eliana? I closed my eyes and imagined us walking on the red carpet together again and thought, I must get closer to her somehow. Now, how do women get outfit ideas? I remembered that my sister Hannah was always on Pinterest looking for the latest styles, so I quickly created an account and started browsing. I wasn't about to go into a store to buy dresses and skirts, so after I settled on a new outfit, I simply ordered them off Amazon. I waited 2 whole days for my packages to arrive, and when they finally did, I rejoiced. I ran into the bathroom to try them all on. OMG, I'm so hot, but I still kinda look like a guy, I thought. So I quickly got some tissue and stuffed it into my chest. There we go, that's much better. I'm every woman, it's all in me, I began singing, then quickly shut up when I heard Roberto get back to our room. He flung the bathroom door open. You look like an idiot. A cute one though. But you need some hair, he said. Oh, I completely forgot about that, I said. That night, I snuck into the dressing room at the theater and borrowed a wig. I decided I'd try to join the sorority the following night. I thought it would be as simple as just showing up and asking if I could join. Well, it turns out that it was a little bit more complicated than that. I was all dressed up in a cute white crop top, which was too small, and a black miniskirt, which was a little too big. I had 2 band-aids on my legs because I cut myself while I was shaving. I was also wearing a pair of bright pink heels, which couldn't have been more than 1 inch high, but they were so difficult to walk in. Oh my gosh, how do you ladies do it? I turned up at their building and knocked on the door. A tall, red-haired girl opened it. Yes, can I help you? Have you lost your way? She asked. Is this where the Alpha Delta sorority meets? I asked. Yeah, what do you want? She asked. Can I, join? I said. She started laughing uncontrollably. She looked inside and shouted, Hey, some girl just got lost on her way to what was, hopefully, fashion school. And she says she wants to join us. Come see her. She looks like a man. I was embarrassed. 5 other girls came over to the door. One of them was Eliana, and I could feel myself blushing. I was not surprised that she was the first one to speak. Zoe, I've told you to stop being so mean to people. She does not look like a man. She's beautiful. Come in, darling. What's your name? Eliana smiled. It was then I realized that I forgot to give myself a fake name. I had to come up with one on the spot. My name's Judy, and I have no friends, I said. Aww, they all said together. This is too easy, I thought. Eliana grabbed my arm and led me inside. Hi, my name is Wendy, and I'm in charge here, said one of the girls. She motioned for me to sit on one of their huge couches, then continued. We don't usually accept new members in this way, but one of our girls just transferred to another college, and we have a spot open. You're going to have to go through our special initiation phase, though. If you pass successfully, then you'll be able to join. How does that sound?" "It sounds great. Thanks for accepting me," I said. "You haven't been accepted yet," she winked. The next week was definitely the strangest week of my life. I had to skip all of my classes because part of my initiation involved following Wendy and the other girls around. I barely got time to see Eliana. First, I had to show them that I could be humble. How? I had to do almost anything they asked. It was almost like I was a servant. I had to carry their books around, buy their drinks, bring them whatever they wanted from the cafeteria, and even do their laundry. On Friday, Wendy asked me to clean her room. It was the first time I'd ever stepped into a girl's dorm room. I realized that they were a lot messier than my guy friends. "Am I in now?" I asked at our meeting during the end of the week. "We are not like other sororities. Our initiation goes on for longer than a week," Wendy replied. "Next week, we'd like you to pick a partner who will guide you through the rest of the tasks. She will decide whether you've passed or failed," she continued. "Okay, I pick Eliana," I squealed, trying not to sound too excited. "We're going to have so much fun," she smiled. The next day, I met her early in the morning. "Wow, lovely outfit," she said. "Thanks," I blushed. "So first, we've got to go to the dog shelter and volunteer to walk some of the dogs. After that, we're going to go to a homeless shelter, and we'll help to prepare their lunch. After that, we'll probably be hungry, so we'll go eat," she said. I thought this sounded like the perfect date, minus the dogs. I'd always been a cat person, and the thought of being surrounded by barking maniacs all morning made me feel a bit uncomfortable. But Eliana was worth it. We arrived at the shelter, and we took 2 dogs each. We walked through the park with them, and it wasn't as terrible as I'd imagined. Eliana was hilarious. We spoke about all kinds of things, and this was the first time I'd ever really been alone with her. It was exhilarating. I found out more about her personality, which was quite unique. For example, she loved collecting buttons, and her favorite activity was toy voyaging. I didn't even know such a thing existed. Every time she traveled, she took her stuffed wombat, Gregory, and took pictures of him in front of different popular landmarks. Then we went to the homeless shelter. This was something I'd always wanted to do, but I'd just never gotten around to it. I couldn't cook that well, but I was grateful for the chance to help others. When it was finally time for a break, we went to a nearby noodle shop and sat next to each other. By this time, I was overwhelmed with my feelings for Eliana, and I decided to tell her the truth. After we ate and were peacefully sipping on some soda, I ripped off my wig and said, "It's me, Spencer, from the drama club. Dr. Thompson kicked me out and I was crushed because I wouldn't get to see you again, so I created a fake identity to get into your sorority. Please don't hate me or think I'm a total creep or stalker. I just missed you so much." She dropped her drink and stared blankly. "That's really flattering, Spencer," she said, "but I'm not even into guys. I was nice to you because I thought you were a great prospective girlfriend. I am still recovering from this, so please keep me in your thoughts." "Ooh, your girlfriend is so pretty, Asher. What's her name?" my annoying sister said as she crept up behind me. I was at my computer looking at pictures of gorgeous celebrities. "This isn't my girlfriend. Get out of my room, you pest," I said. "You'll never have a girlfriend anyway. You're too ugly," she replied while running out of my room. She was little, but I guess she was right. Not about the ugly part, but about me not ever having a girlfriend. Although I was already 18 years old, I'd never had a girlfriend. This was my choice, though. I found the girls my age too immature, needy, and boring. I watched my friends get into petty, ridiculous arguments with their girlfriends, and I just shuddered at the thought of me having to go through the same thing. They got upset over everything. If you didn't text them good morning, if you didn't call them during the day to ask how they were, if you didn't help them carry their bags, if you didn't tell them they were pretty at least 10 times a day, I mean, the list is exhausting. But before I continue, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. You know who I did have crushes on, though? Older women. I found most of my female teachers super attractive. The older, the better. I even had a thing for the principal. I'd look at random women on the street and fantasize about them too, even my mom's friends. Of course, I was too young to ask any of them out, so I just went through high school having the most boring love life ever. After high school, I worked for a year, then got accepted into my dream college. The week before I was supposed to go, I organized a hike for me and my friends. We would climb the highest mountain in our state, then have a picnic on the summit. I figured it was more adventurous than having a lame old goodbye party. We were having an amazing time until my best buddy Greg dared me to run back down the mountain at full speed. This mountain was slippery and covered with sharp rocks, and in retrospect, Greg probably meant it as a joke, but I'm no coward. I ran for about 20 minutes. I stopped for a while to catch my breath and then started again. Suddenly, I felt myself flying. Then, everything went black. I woke up in a hospital bed surrounded by worried faces. "Asher, darling," cried my mom as she saw my eyes open. "What happened to me?" I asked. "I'm not sure, but your friends found you blacked out in the bushes. How do you feel?" she said. I hadn't thought about it until that point. I was in extreme pain. I couldn't feel the lower half of my body, and I felt like my arm was broken. "I feel awful. What happened to me?" I asked. At that moment, a doctor walked in. "Hi, Asher. Both of your legs are broken, and you won't be able to use one of your arms for a while." "What on earth were you doing?" he said. I was just running. I don't really know what happened," I replied. He looked disappointed. My parents stayed with me until visiting hours were over. I stayed in that hospital for a few weeks, and I hated it. The food was terrible, and I missed my room. I eventually decided to persuade my parents to take me home. "But who will take care of you?" my mom asked. "We could hire a nurse. I already have someone in mind," my dad said. "Okay, well, if you're sure about that, then fine," my mom replied. "Thanks, Mom and Dad," I said while trying to hop off my bed, completely forgetting that I couldn't move. My first night back home, I was filled with horrible thoughts. Don't get me wrong, I was happy to be home, but my injury meant that I'd have to change so many of my plans. First, I wouldn't be able to go to college that year. Would I even be well enough to walk the next year? I had no idea. I wouldn't be able to go where I wanted, play sports, or have much fun. I fell asleep and had more nightmares about how much my life would suck in the coming months. I woke up to the breeze blowing softly on my cheeks and the birds chirping outside. I felt grateful for a second, and then I was filled with depressing thoughts about my terrible life again. Suddenly, my bedroom door opened. "Asher, honey, I'd like to introduce you to someone special. This is Denise, your nurse. She'll be taking care of you while your dad and I leave for work during the week," my mom said. In walked the most gorgeous woman I had ever seen in my life. Think of the hottest woman you've ever met and multiply that by 100. That's how hot she was. I stared in shock, and for a while, I felt like my face was broken too. "Hi, Asher. I'm so happy to meet you," she said. "Hi," I said. I was way too shy to say anything else. A week passed, and I hadn't said much to her. She stayed with me during the day and took very good care of me. She'd bring me my meals, and sometimes she'd tell me funny stories too. I wasn't very responsive because I was nervous as hell. When she left at nights, I'd fantasize about her until she came back the next morning. I wished we could have something more, but I didn't know how to tell her. I told myself that I needed to become more friendly. So the next week, I did just that. I told her stories too, and it was easy to make her laugh. She told me she was married with 3 children and on the verge of divorce. But that didn't matter to me. It only meant that she was more mature and that soon she would be completely mine. I was pretty sure I could be a good stepdad too. When I felt more comfortable with her, I'd leave her little poems and tell her how beautiful she was every day. She blushed every time. When I was strong enough to move to the living room, we'd watch movies and eat popcorn together. "Oh, Asher, you are wise beyond your years." "Are you sure you're only 18? She laughed one day. "I am," I said while gazing into her eyes. For a minute, it seemed as if she was lost in my eyes too. And then, in a flash, we were kissing. I couldn't believe this was really happening. "Oh my gosh," I said as we pulled away. "Did you have feelings for me all this time too?" I asked. "From the moment I laid eyes on you," she replied. "I know that your situation at home is a bit complicated, but would you consider being my girlfriend?" I asked. "I thought you'd never ask," she responded. So there it was. I was in a relationship with a much older woman, a hot nurse, the most gorgeous woman I had ever seen in my life. My legs were broken, but I felt like the luckiest man in the universe. Later, I started going to a physiotherapist and I started to gain my strength in my legs. Eventually, I was able to walk with a cane, but Denise still came over to take care of me while my parents were away. One morning after breakfast, my mom said, "Asher, you're almost better. Do you still need a nurse? I think it's time we let her go. You're able to fend for yourself now." "No!" my dad and I shouted at the same time. My mom looked very confused. "It's a lot of added expense that we don't really need right now. We're not done paying the mortgage for this house, and we have to deal with our car payments as well as your hospital bills. It's too much. Today is her last day," she said. I sighed. My dad looked disappointed too, but I didn't know why. I decided I needed to come up with a plan, and quick. Denise is here because I got into an accident. How can I get her to stay longer? Aha, that's it. I can hurt myself badly, so my mom has no choice but to let her stay, I thought. When Denise came, my mom broke the news to her. She looked crushed. "Don't worry," I whispered and winked. We had a romantic day together. I had a long nap, and when I woke up, I wasn't sure where Denise was. It was time to execute my plan. I walked to the top of the staircase and threw myself all the way down. I blacked out and woke up in the hospital again. It was like deja vu. I had only broken one arm and bruised my head really badly, but my mom agreed to allow Denise to stay for 2 more weeks. I was ecstatic. I went home feeling accomplished. The next day, Denise brought me my favorite blueberry cheesecake. We sat and spoke for hours. I couldn't stop staring at her beauty, and I felt so happy that I was getting to spend more time with her. She gazed into my eyes, and we kissed. I heard some noises downstairs, but I paid no attention to them. I was too lost in her embrace. Then, we heard a loud bang on my bedroom door, which was wide open. "What the hell is going on here?" my dad shouted. "I brought you into my house to take care of my son, and here you are making out with him? You make me sick," he continued. "Dad, no, it was me. Please don't blame her," I pleaded. Suddenly, my dad burst into tears. "Why are you crying, Dad?" I asked. He walked up to Denise and held her face in his hands. "How could you do this to me, sweetheart? I thought that what we had was special. But you're cheating on me with my son. How could you do this to me?" he cried. "I'm so sorry, darling. You know I love you, but I also have something special with Asher," she replied. I was so shocked that I couldn't speak, and apparently we were so lost in the moment that we didn't hear my mom walking up the stairs. She walked into my room curiously. "What's all this commotion about?" she asked. She was holding a glass of water which fell to the floor as she stood in shock. "Gregory, why are you holding the nurse's face in your hands?" she said. "Honey, I'm so sorry. I've been meaning to talk to you about this. I'm so sorry that I hid it for such a long time, but I've been having an affair with Denise. She was my high school girlfriend, and when she came to work here, we started seeing each other again, and it was just magical. It's why I suggested her in the first place. She's getting a divorce soon, and I will move in with her and the kids," he said. "But that's what she told me. I'm moving in with her," I screamed. "What?" my mom asked in confusion. I think it was too much for her, so she walked out. "I'm sorry to both of you," said the nurse. "The truth is, I'm not leaving my husband. I just wanted to have a bit of fun, but I'm very devoted to him and to my family. I'm sorry I put you all through this. I love you both," she said, and walked out of the door too. My father and I stared at each other blankly. So much was going through my mind. I'd lost the love of my life, and now my family was about to fall apart. A month later, everything had changed. My mom got a divorce from my dad, who went to live on his own in a cabin near a creek. I stayed with my mom, who was still devastated. I planned to go to college the next year, and I really hoped that things would turn around for me. I suppose I should give younger women a chance. What do you think?
"Oh, my package arrived," I said joyfully as I signed off for my package and skipped to my bedroom. I'd been waiting 6 whole weeks for this, and I was so excited. The package was smaller than expected, and when I opened it, I understood why. It wasn't the package I expected. It was a picture of a woman with a child on her lap. That child was me. In the box was a note. "Your father is a liar? Hi, my name is Naomi. Before I tell you about the time where my life was completely turned around, like and subscribe to this channel. This way you can see more stories from people like me. Oh, and don't forget to hit that notification bell. So to give you a little backstory, my dad has been the only parent I have ever known. My dad said my mom died shortly after giving birth. My dad and I were inseparable, and he is amazing. But as I looked in the pictures in the box, I couldn't help but wonder if my mom died during childbirth. Because then it couldn't be her in the picture with me, could it? Did my dad lie to me? I rushed to my bookshelf and pulled my photo album, sat on my bed and flipped through the pages. I found a picture of me in the exact same outfit. I turned the picture around, and on the back it said Naomi's 5th birthday. My mind was blown. My dad gave me pictures of my mom, so I knew what my mother looked like. So the question now stood at, what really happened to my mom? I waited impatiently for my dad to get home from work. I couldn't concentrate on my homework and decided to ditch it till I got some answers. I kept staring at the pictures in the box and wondering what my life would be like if my mom was alive. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway interrupted my thoughts. I grabbed the 2 pictures, one with my mom and I and the other with just me, and I rushed to the front door and opened it. "Hey honey, how was school?" My dad asked as he jumped out of the car and headed towards me. "Dad, what happened to Mom?" I questioned him as he kissed me on my forehead and went into the house. I followed him and closed the door behind us. He looked at me confused and replied, "You know that your mom died after childbirth. Where's this coming from?" I showed him the 2 pictures, and a wave of emotions washed over his face briefly, before his expression became blank. "Dad, what happened to Mom? How could she be dead when clearly she was at my 5th birthday party?" I looked at him curiously. I decided not to tell my dad about the note. "Where did you get this picture?" he asked softly. "Does that even matter?" "These pictures are obviously photoshopped," my dad said harshly as he shoved the photos into my hands. "Stop this foolishness. Your mom is gone." My dad walked away and spent the rest of his evening in his room. The next few days, we got numerous notes saying the same thing. Tell her the truth. I asked my dad who could be sending these notes and what they were talking about, but he brushed it off. One day, I got a note at school inside my locker, and that's when I guess my dad decided to take the notes seriously. My dad was very predictable. We've had the same predictable Saturday for as long as I could remember. We would wake up, go for a jog around the savannah, get breakfast, binge watch anything we missed during the week, and then we would head to the library, and then the mall. But this Saturday was different. "Naomi, I have a few things to get done at the office today, okay?" my dad said as he quickly exited the house. I watched from the window as my dad got into the car, but I knew something was wrong. He was dressed in office attire, but his briefcase was still at the door where he left it the day before. I called the office. Sarah, his assistant, answered the phone. "Hey Sarah, this is Naomi. Is my dad expected at the office today?" I asked casually. "Hi Naomi. No, he actually took next week off. He said that he had something important that he needed to get done. Is everything okay at home?" she asked, concerned. "Everything is fine," I lied. I thanked Sarah and I hung up. What is my dad up to? Who's he going to see? What is he going to do that he needed to take a week from the office? My eyes widened as I realized my dad knew where the notes were coming from, and he probably went to meet the sender. I waited anxiously for my dad to get home, but that night my dad did not return home. With each passing minute, I grew more worried than the last. I wondered if I should call the police, but I decided against it. I mean, what was I going to tell them? I had obviously nothing to go on. I sighed in frustration. I knew that my dad was in trouble because usually he would check in on me during the day to make sure that I was okay. But so far, I hadn't even received a message. I needed to know where he went. I went to his study and looked through his desk for any clues, but my father was a neat freak, and nothing was out of place. "Breathe, Naomi, breathe. Focus on the task. Don't be overwhelmed," I said to myself as I felt the frustration build inside me. I sank into my dad's office chair heavily, leaned back, and massaged my temples. My eyes glanced at his notepad and a pencil that was left next to it. My father never left his pencils on his desk, ever. There was a piece of paper sticking out at the top indicating that a page was recently torn from the pad. Bingo! I got the clue that I needed. I took the pencil and shaded the page of the notepad. I saw it in a movie once, and I hoped it worked. My eyes lit up when I realized that the indented letters were an address. I jotted the address on another piece of paper, and I went to my laptop to see if I could find a place that matched. The place that matched was St. Elizabeth's Mental Institution. Say what? I looked at the image of St. Elizabeth's Mental Institution. I felt as though I was going further and further into a rabbit hole. The further I went, the darker things got. Why would my dad go to a mental institution? My dad had no siblings, and his parents died when he was a child. I didn't know any of my mother's side of the family since my dad said she was an only child and she grew up in an orphanage. At 11 p.m., I was still flickering through channels on the television, hoping that my dad would walk through the door. Even though I was worried, I couldn't help but be angry with him. If he had told me who was sending the letters and the truth about my mom, he would have been home. I would have been sleeping. But most importantly, I would have known the truth. Parents really do make things more difficult than they need to be. The next day, tired and restless, I went to St. Elizabeth's. Hi, good morning. Did my dad come here yesterday? I asked politely. I showed the receptionist the picture of my dad. Good morning. Yes, he was here. But the person he was looking for no longer stays at the institution. She responded. Would it be possible to get an address or even the name of the person he came to meet? I'm sorry. That's against their policy. Only next of kin are allowed that kind of information. I thanked her and felt defeated. Who was the relative that my father came here to see? Why did he keep that a secret from me? What if the person was my mother? I needed to find my father, and I needed to find him now. As I raced home, I thought about ways I could track my father's phone. When I finally arrived, I went to work. I looked through the internet and found an app that I could use to track my father's phone. Luckily, I had my father's credit card information, so that I could pay for the app. Thank you, intrusive technology. I whispered as I punched my father's number into the app and waited for the results. I traced my father's phone to a village called Moruga, which was located in the countryside. I called the police to file a missing persons report and tell them everything I knew, including my father's whereabouts. I told them that I will be visiting the area that night and hung up. While my father wasn't a violent man, he understood the dangers that lurked around corners. I wore all black and a black beanie on my head. My pants had multiple pockets to hold my money, a taser, my phone, and a small bottle of pepper spray. I needed to be ready for whatever I met in Moruga. I already lost my mother. I wasn't about to lose my father without a fight. At 5 p.m., I left home in a taxi, high on adrenaline to track my father. As the car moved away from the bustling streets and began to drive on long, silent roads lined with trees, my adrenaline was on zero. When I was close enough, I thanked the driver, paid, and got out of the taxi. The road was dimly lit, and there was one house on the street. I called the police again to let them know where I was. It looked run down, and the porch light was flickering. I snuck to the back of the house, listening intently for any movement. I opened the door, and my heart raced as the door squeaked loudly. I entered quickly and let it shut behind me. The house was messy, and it smelled like beer and lavender. I walked through the house slowly and realized that no one was at home. The only light that was on was the basement light. I pushed through the door and was surprised that it was open. I walked down the steps, and there he was. "Dad!" I shrieked louder than I wanted. I rushed to his side. My dad sat in a chair, bound and gagged. His head had a gash, and dry blood ran along his face. I knelt down beside him, and he opened his swollen eyes and smiled. I immediately began to cut the ropes. As soon as he was loose, I draped my father's arm around my shoulder and helped him towards the stairs. We were able to get to the back door, but when I opened it, we came face to face with her, the woman from the pictures. "Mom?" I asked, confused. I looked at Dad. The woman pushed her way into the house, forcing us back into the house. "Where do you think you're going, Dwight?" the woman said as she grabbed my father by the hair and threw him to the ground. "Dad!" I screamed as I ran to him. "Dwight, aren't you going to introduce me to your pretty daughter?" the woman asked, circling us like prey. "This is your aunt. Your mom's older sister, Nora, my dad said softly. I looked at him in disbelief. He continued. I went to St. Elizabeth's because I knew Nora was sending the letters. However, when I got there, I was told she was released, and I was given this address. She blamed me for what happened to your mother, and we got into an argument. She knocked me over the head, and when I woke up, I was tied to the chair. Tell her what you did to Deborah. Tell her how you let them take her away. Nora shouted at my dad. My dad broke down and began to cry. I snuggled into him and buried my head in his chest. I had never seen my dad like this before. Through the tears, he explained that when I was younger, there was a home invasion. My aunt, my mom, my dad, and I were home at the time. My dad was closest to the door, and when they came in, my dad protected me, and my mom was taken. Hearing the commotion in the living room, my aunt came in just as my mom was being dragged outside. My dad stopped my aunt from going after my mom. He quickly barricaded the door and called the police. When the police arrived, my dad reported what happened. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and months into years. My mom was never found. My aunt blamed my dad for not protecting her sister. He had no choice but to take out a restraining order on Nora, who began sending him death threats. And because she was unable to deal with the loss of her sister, she was warded in St. Elizabeth's. The police sirens indicated that the police had arrived on the scene. My dad was taken to the hospital, and my aunt was taken away by the police. As I sat and looked at my dad, helpless in the hospital bed, I couldn't help but wonder why he kept that secret from me. I wonder what other secrets he might be hiding. I will never be able to look at my dad the same again. That evening, I went home to shower and gather a few things. Then I planned to return to the hospital. When I opened the door to leave, I saw a package on the doorstep. I looked around before picking it up, and I brought it inside. I opened it, and my heart stopped when I saw what was inside the box. There was a picture of my mother, my real mother, and a note that read, "Your father is a liar. Your mother is still alive? If you want to see her, come alone?" I ran to my room to check the previous notes. Judging by the handwriting, this wasn't my Aunt Nora's work, which meant someone else knew something about my mom. What should I do? Should I do what they say, or is it a trap? Please help me and leave your advice in the comments below.